Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something a little different, not the clash of shields or the roar of longships. So if you came for blood and battle, you might want to grab a different horn. But the hushed moments by the hearth, where furs rustle and the most intimate vows were woven into everyday life. You're about to slip behind the polished sagas and sprawling raids into the woven benches and hidden corners where Viking sex customs, betrothal, marriage, fertility rites and taboos truly shaped Norse intimacy. So before we go any further, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if this kind of slow, immersive history is your thing, and drop a comment to let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is on your end. I love seeing who's listening in the quiet corners of the night. Now, dim your lights, let that soft hum of your fan become part of the story. And if you're ready, let's drift into the woven benches and flickering hearths of Norse homes together. Imagine yourself waking before dawn, the sky a slate-grey hush. You lie on a simple woolen pallet, the rough-hewn planks of your longhouse floor sending coolness through your back. Around you the household stirs, a hen clucks softly in the corner, the low snore of your brother, the muted footsteps of a kitchen maid gathering twigs for the hearth. This is the morning you have long anticipated, the day your father welcomes guests to negotiate your mundara, the bride price that will bind you, in name and in ritual, to the man chosen. As first light bleeds through the smoke hole above, you stir beneath your woolen blankets, the coarse fibers pressing softly against your skin. The dawn is a pale wash of silver and lavender, seeping through the dark that still clings to every corner of the longhouse. You shift a hand over your sister's shoulder to check she sleeps on, her steady breathing rising and falling like a tide. The hush of the household is profound. Those early moments when the world seems suspended between night and day, and even time itself feels reluctant to move. Sliding out from under your covers, you press your bare feet against the cold, straw-strewn floor. The chill seizes your toes, but you welcome it. Colder still is the breath of fate approaching, and at least the floor cannot betray a quiver. Pulling your woolen tunic close, you adjust the simple leather ties at your waist. The wool is still stiff from overnight damp, but as you rub your hands over its surface, you coax it into pliancy. Your underdress, dyed a muted green, rustles softly as you step forward, the hem whispering against your ankles. Each thread feels purposeful today, woven by your mother's own hands, spun with intentions of fortitude and grace. In the corner of the longhouse, a small fire sputters, its last embers crackling against blackened logs. You kneel beside the hearth, gathering a handful of kindling and dry twigs. The scent of peat smoke lingers heavily, its smoky sweetness a familiar balm, a reminder that home's hearth has never known abandonment. With practiced ease, you arrange the sticks in a crisscross, striking flint against steel until a spark catches. The flame flares to life, sending ribbons of golden light dancing across the hand-wrought wooden walls. The grains and knots in the timber reveal themselves, patterns of age, of each ring a whispered memory of seasons past. You smile faintly, tracing with your gaze the carved notches your brothers left to mark their birthdays long ago. As the fire settles into a steady glow, you rise and move to the benches flanking the hearth. There, coiled in a neat pile, lies your morning task, lengths of linen thread, spun by the women of your village and dyed with local woad into a soft blue-grey. Today these threads will become ribbons, tiny tokens of goodwill woven around guests' cups, tied to spears or wound about coins as they change hands in the mundra negotiations. You test each strand for fraying, twisting it gently between thumb and forefinger. If a thread were to snap, the symbolism would be unfortunate. Fate's knot loosened before the vows were even spoken. Your fingers move in a practiced dance, looping the linen into small bows, securing them with knots that feel like blessings. Each ribbon takes shape under your touch, some wide and stately, others slender and delicate, so that no two guests depart with exactly the same gift. It is a modest offering, yet it speaks of attention and care, a silent message that you value the pact being forged today. As you work, a grey tabby cat brushes against your leg, purring insistently. Soon, two more follow, one a sleek black, the other a mottled tortoiseshell. They weave between your ankles, their soft fur a comforting counterpoint to the coarse straw beneath your feet. Their rhythmic purrs merge with the crackle of the fire, creating a gentle lullaby that soothes both your nerves and your heart. After the ribbons are complete, you return them to a small carved wooden bowl your mother gifted you on your 12th name day. Its surface is worn smooth by years of handling, the edges rounded like river stones. You set it aside and rise again, stretching your arms above your head. In the doorway, the sky has brightened to a pale blue, and the distant gulls cry over the fjord. The world beyond your longhouse pulses with life. Dew dripping from pine needles, tiny insects stirring at the edges of the hearth's warmth. A kitchen maid appears, balancing a wooden bowl of warm, soured goat's milk in one hand and a loaf of freshly baked barley bread in the other. She offers them to you with a respectful nod, her own cheeks flushed from the early grind of labour. You take the bowl, its surface rippling in the firelight, and lift it to your lips. The milk is thin and tangy, carrying hints of sweet clover the goats grazed upon the day before. You sip deliberately, savouring the gentle tartness that grounds you in the here and now. Then you break the barley bread, its crust crackling softly, and nibble at a slice. The grain is coarse, each kernel a tiny testament to the fields tilled by your kin. Yet today, it tastes of promise, of contracts honoured, of futures sealed. You pause in the simple ceremony of your breakfast, letting the flavours settle as the sun climbs higher. In these quiet moments before the bustle of guests and negotiations, you feel the steady beat of your own spirit, a pulse in tune with the rhythms of hearth and home, of lineage and duty. And as you set the bowl aside, the day's great pageant feels not daunting, but strangely intimate, a tapestry into which you too have woven your threads. As you step back into the alcove that serves as your private chamber, the world of ceremony and negotiation feels momentarily paused, as though the longhouse itself is holding its breath. Here, in this modest enclave, lie the tokens of your womanhood and the symbols of your family's honour, your trousseau. Each piece, shift, brooch, ribbon and comb has been chosen with care, not merely for its beauty, but for the message it conveys to those who will gather in your father's hall. Your eyes first come to rest on the shift, a length of finely woven linen, dyed in a muted rose that seems almost to glow in the half-light. The embroidery along its hem depicts ram's horns curling into spirals, a design your mother selected as a talisman of protection and continuity. You pick up the garment and inhale its faint scent of woad and drying flax, imagining the distant fields where the plants grew beneath summer skies. When you loop it over your arms, its weight feels comforting, as if you are enfolding yourself in both your mother's care and your family's history. Next, you lift the carved bone comb from its leather pouch. Its rounded teeth glint in the light, and your fingers trace the delicate knotwork etched into its handle. Your mother taught you that every tool of a woman's toilet speaks of her readiness. A comb untangled signifies a mind at ease. A mirror unblemished suggests an untroubled heart. With that in mind, you begin to work through your hair section by section, drawing out knots and smoothing stray strands. As the tangles give way, you feel your own anxieties unravel in parallel. Each stroke of the comb a small blessing, a quiet affirmation that grace can be found in simple care. Once your hair is tamed, you turn to the brooch that will fasten your shift at the shoulder. It is an heirloom of the matrilineal line, a simple circle of bronze, scored with runes that spell out steadfast. You fasten it slowly, listening for the soft click as the pin slides through the linen. In that moment, you sense the weight of generations resting upon your shoulder. Yet rather than burden you, it steadies your heart. You draw the fold of fabric tight beneath it, knowing that this small fastening will secure not only cloth, but an unspoken vow of familial loyalty. Beneath the shift, you slip into your woolen underdress, a garment more practical than elegant, but no less significant. The coarse weave breathes warmth, the muted green hue, a reminder of the mossy forest floor outside. As you pull it down over your arms and legs, you relish the gentle pressure against your skin, as though the fabric itself is guiding you forward, preparing you for the day's solemn events. At your dressing bench lies a folded linen cloth inscribed with your initials, and those of your future husband, an early token of union. You unfold it and feel the crispness of untouched fabric, its fibers still bearing the imprint of the loom. You fold it carefully, aligning edges until the lines meet in precise symmetry. It is a gesture of order amid the uncertainty ahead. Your mother appears at the doorway, carrying the small chest that holds the Morgan Gifu. Her eyes meet yours, and for a moment there is no need for words, only a shared understanding of the path you walk. She sets the chest on a low table, unlatches it, and reveals the torque within. The twisted bronze arcs gleam in the gloom, and you lift it reverently, feeling the cool metal bite gently into your palm. Later, when the time comes, this will be laid around your neck by your husband, a promise of provision and partnership. For now, its presence in this room is a touchstone, anchoring you to the reality of tomorrow's pledge. Finally, you turn to the ribbons you prepared earlier. They lie coiled in the carved wooden bowl, each one a delicate strand of intention. You pick one, a slender loop of blue-grey linen, and drape it across your wrist like a bracelet. Its gentle weight reminds you of the bonds you will form today, of the threads of agreement that will weave your family to another. You breathe deeply, feeling the cord's slight roughness against your skin, and allow yourself a moment of quiet reflection. When at last you step from the alcove, fully arrayed, you carry more than mere garments. You carry your family's hopes, your own soft resolve, and the stillness of a soul prepared. Each fold of cloth, each clasp and ribbon, has been a meditation. Now, as you move toward the hall's light and your father's expectant gaze, you are ready, not only to be presented, but to stand as a living symbol of lineage, love, and the steadfast promise of union. As you step out through the heavy plank door of the longhouse, the morning air greets you like the first note of a song you've waited all your life to hear. It is crisp, bright with the scent of pine resin and salt from the nearby fjord, and carries a whisper of smoke from distant cooking fires. The courtyard is a patchwork of stone slabs and beaten earth, fringed by stacks of firewood and the simple wooden rails where goats and sheep are tethered for milking. Here, in this everyday scene, you sense the boundaries between daily life and ceremony beginning to blur. Your father stands just inside the courtyard's centre, his broad shoulders framed by the longhouse's shadow. He is dressed in his best blue-dyed wool cloak, the deep indigo, contrasting with the pale morning light. A silver brooch fastens the cloak at his shoulder, its surface etched with the interlacing patterns of Jord and Thora, an emblem of both earth and strength. He notices you first, and inclines his head with a small, proud smile. You return the gesture, keeping your posture composed. The eyes of many will soon rest upon you. In the distance, the bark of a herding dog announces the approach of riders. Soon, 3 figures emerge from the thin morning mist, their horses' hoofbeats muffled against the damp ground. The lead horse, a sturdy dun mare, carries an envoy whose cloak is clasped with a bronze torque, an unmistakable sign that he speaks not as a traveller, but as a representative of a powerful clan. His 2 attendants follow closely, their reins loosely held, the horses' heads swaying gently as they sniff the air. As they dismount, the horses are led by groom boys, who lay them on the tethering posts you prepared last evening. Their breaths come in white puffs, and you catch the quick exchange of quiet words as they pat the animals' necks and adjust leather straps. Even the horses seem aware of the day's significance. Their ears flick back at the distant clang of metal and the murmur of voices. The envoys rise to their full height. The lead envoy is tall and lean, with dark hair braided at the temples and a beard that frames a thoughtful expression. His eyes are the colour of storm clouds, reflective and calm. He bows, inclining his head until his cloak brushes the earth. His attendants offer baskets of smoked salmon and hard cheese, each morsel carefully wrapped in oak leaves. The scents mingle, the sharp tang of cured fish, the mellow richness of aged cheese, and beneath it all the faint aroma of wild herbs. Your father steps forward to receive the gifts. He accepts the fish with both hands, then the cheese, his movements measured. The exchange is silent, save for the rustle of cloaks and the creak of wicker. Each basket's presentation feels like a pulse in the heartbeat of ancient custom, an unspoken dialogue of respect and expectation. The lead envoy rises, and your father gestures toward the longhouse entrance. "Come, friends," your father says in his deep, steady tone. "We have much to discuss, and the morning grows old." There is no hurry in his words, but an undeniable insistence on purpose. The envoy inclines his head again, acknowledging the invitation, and the 3 men follow your father through the doorway. You move to one side, giving them space, and watch as they step onto the threshold where the warmth of the hearth spills outward. Light from the fire mingles with the grey daylight, creating a soft halo around each figure. You catch a glimpse of the envoy's cloak being brushed aside to reveal a belt hung with pouches of marked silver rings, the munda to be measured and weighed. Your breath catches, but you remain still, knowing that your own role will be to observe, to witness the moment when your worth is set in metal. Beside you, your younger sister peers from behind a pillar, her eyes wide with curiosity. You place a gentle hand on her shoulder, and she nods, as though drawing silent courage from you. The household cats slink behind your skirts, their tails brushing your ankles. Outside, the herons in the nearby marsh take flight in a soft flurry of wings, their cries echoing like distant trumpets, nature's own heraldry marking this union of families. A hush settles over the courtyard as the longhouse door closes, the sudden stillness as profound as a held breath. You inhale, tasting the sharp sweetness of juniper berries from the offerings arranged on a low stone slab. The earth beneath your feet feels anchored, as though the ground itself recognizes the pact about to unfold. In that moment, you sense the slow turning of wheels set into motion, threads of destiny weaving you into a new tapestry of kinship and obligation. Then, with a final glance toward the horses now standing quiet in the grey light, you step forward to join the gathering inside, your heart steady, your purpose clear. Today, in this convergence of timber, firelight, and honoured tradition, your life moves from the familiar rhythms of home into the unfolding promise of a shared tomorrow. As the low wooden door swings shut behind the envoys, a quiet settles over the longhouse, an almost reverent silence that feels as though the world itself has drawn a breath and paused. You stand near the central hearth, its fire now crackling softly, sending tendrils of golden light into the dusky rafters. The air is warm here, scented with smoke and hearthstone, carrying an undercurrent of expectation that ripples through your chest like a gentle wave. Your father, seated on the high bench at the head of the hall, taps the carved armrest with a polished walnut staff. His cloak settles around him, folds of deep blue wool draping regally. Across from him, the lead envoy takes his place on a low stool, his attendants standing behind him like silent sentinels. Between them lies the sheepskin-covered table, the arena of today's negotiation. Spread out upon it is the ritual scroll, its edges weighted with small stones, its parchment soft and worn. You can almost sense the ghosts of past agreements lingering in the faded script. The lead envoy clears his throat, a deliberate gesture that draws every eye. He reaches into a leather pouch at his belt, his fingers brushing against the cool weight of silver rings. One by one he withdraws them, each ring meticulously cast, bearing the mark of his father's smith, a simple rune signifying prosperity. The rings gleam under the hearthlight, each a tiny promise of alliance. He lays them on the table in neat rows until their weight gives substance to his offer. 60 rings, 60 ounces of silver, he declares in a steady voice that neither rushes nor falters. Your father leans forward, fingers steepled, and studies the rings as though reading a fine script. The soft murmur of the hearth is the only sound for a heartbeat. Then, with a measured motion, your father's steward moves to the side table and retrieves a small scale, a masterwork of wrought iron with delicately balanced pans. The steward sets it before your father, who watches as he places one of the silver rings into the pan. The other pan, empty for now, tilts ever so slightly toward the weight, a silent invitation to balance the scales. Your father speaks, his tone calm but firm. 60 is a fair start, but I ask 70. He nods once, and the steward produces 10 more rings from a separate pouch, placing them beside the envoy's pile. The envoy's expression remains serene, but you detect the slightest lift of an eyebrow. He exchanges a quick, almost imperceptible glance with his attendants. Then, rather than voicing impatience, he inclines his head as though in respectful consideration. He withdraws 10 more rings and arranges them carefully among the first. The silver rings now catch the firelight in a small forest of points. The steward places the entire collection onto the empty pan of the scale. For a moment the table holds its breath, 2 heaps of silver glimmering like morning dew. Then the scale responds, tilting toward the envoy's side ever so barely. Your father's steward adds a tiny bullet-shaped weight, an iron counterpoint, until the pans hover in perfect equilibrium. A subtle shift passes through the onlookers, approval, relief, anticipation. You feel it ripple through your chest. Your father inclines once more. 70 it shall be, he pronounces, voice smooth as polished horn. The envoy responds with a soft click of his tongue, a sound neither of contempt nor of delight, but of acceptance. He bows, and your father bows in return. In that mutual nod, a pact is sealed. The steward begins the slow task of transferring rings back to their pouches, counting each with clear, deliberate precision, while the envoy's attendants gather the stones from the scroll's corners and roll up the parchment. As the rings vanish into leather pouches, you sense the gravity of the moment lighten, replaced by the gentle relief of resolution. The envoy rises from his stool and extends his hand toward your father. Their palms meet in a handshake, solid, unhurried, each knighted by the other's respect. Behind them, the hearth fire crackles a little brighter, as though offering its own blessing to the agreement. You exhale, almost imperceptibly, and the household cats slink forward, circling your ankles. You feel their warmth against your calves, grounding you in the here and now. The hush broken. A neighbor begins to hum a low tune, an old song of union, its melody winding like smoke through the rafters. In these moments, the weight of silver has transformed into something far less tangible, trust. And as the envoys settle back onto their stools, The next chapter of your life edges closer. Yet in this hushed aftermath of the mundane negotiation, you find a quiet wonder in the simplicity of exchanged rings, the solemnity of balanced scales, and the promise that tomorrow will dawn under a shared sky. As the final strands of Munda silver are counted and tucked away, a hush settles over the longhouse that feels almost sacred. Yet the day's work is not fully done. Your mother steps forward, carrying in her arms a small chest crafted of ashwood and bound in blackened iron. Its hinges creak softly as she places it upon a low table near the hearth, the iron bands catching the firelight in muted glimmers. The chest itself is modest, no grand carvings or painted scenes, but in its simplicity lies its power. It holds your Morgan Gifu, the morning gift that your husband will present to you after the nuptial night. Your breath catches as your mother unlatches the iron clasp. Inside, nestled upon a bed of deep red velvet, rests a torque, a collar of twisted bronze whose ends flare into graceful horn-like spirals tipped with silver runes. These runes, you know, are not mere decoration. They spell out the Old Norse words for protection and prosperity, invoking both shield maidens' courage and fertile fields. You reach in with gentle reverence, lifting the torque as though it was spun sunlight. Its weight is surprising, a firm reminder that this gift is not trifling, but a pledge of enduring partnership. You lean closer, studying the craftsmanship. The bronze coils are perfectly round, each twist uniform, as if the artisan had drawn the metal from the earth itself and coaxed it into shape. Tiny hammer marks glitter along the surface, evidence of the smith's careful hand, forging strength into every inch. The runes are crisp, carved so precisely that they seem to glow when the torque is turned just so beneath the hearth's glow. You lean closer, studying the craftsmanship. The bronze coils are perfectly round, each twist uniform, as if the artisan had drawn the metal from the earth itself and coaxed it into shape. Tiny hammer marks glitter along the surface, evidence of the smith's careful hand, forging strength into every inch. The runes are crisp, carved so precisely that they seem to glow when the torque is turned just so beneath the hearth's glow. You imagine the torque around your neck tomorrow morning, a circle without break, an emblem of lasting union. Your mother's voice draws you back. "This will be yours," she says softly. When the first light of dawn touches the edge of the bed curtain, the sentence hangs between you like a promise in the air, inevitable, yet still brimming with mystery. You nod, feeling a warm tingle in your chest, a mixture of excitement, gratitude, and quiet solemnity. Behind you, the hearth crackles as your father's steward brings forward a small velvet pouch, embroidered with your initials and those of your future husband. Inside lie two slender silver rings, meant to be slipped onto your fingers in the morning, one to match the munda, and one to represent your own gift in return, a token called the heimangath, or dowry gift. These rings speak of mutual respect, of two families weaving their fortunes together. You lift one ring, its cool surface catching the light, and slide it onto your ring finger. The metal sends a faint pulse through your skin, a rhythm that feels in tune with your heartbeat. A faint smile crosses your lips, and your mother returns it with a proud tilt of her head. She places the torque back in its velvet nest and closes the lid of the chest. Then, with deliberate care, she fastens the clasp so that the gift is both secure and ready. "Guard this well," she whispers, "for it carries not just wealth but honor." You rise and run your fingers along the chest's iron bands, feeling the cool metal under your palm. In its sturdy construction, you sense your family's sturdy love, unadorned, reliable, enduring. You step back, giving the chest room, and allow yourself a moment to imagine tomorrow's dawn. The longhouse will be hushed once more. Friends and kin will drift away, leaving only the bride and groom and the flicker of a single candle. You will lift the curtain at your bedside and hold out the torque. You will extend your hand for the rings, and then in the soft mercy of morning light, the promise of partnership will be made tangible in metal and word. Turning away, you catch sight of your reflection in a small bronze mirror that hangs nearby. The firelight paints your face in soft highlights and shadow, accentuating the calm that has settled within you. You realize that this moment, melding anticipation with ritual, has already transformed you. No longer merely a daughter in your father's hall, you are now a bride in your own right, carrying a gift that binds you to tomorrow's promise. With a steadying breath, you let the vision slip away and focus on the present. The scent of peat drifting through the air, the murmured conversation in the courtyard beyond, the comforting weight of woven ribbons at your waist. For tonight's ceremonies lie ahead, but the gift of the tomorrow you will share has already been cast in bronze and silver. Its shape determined, its meaning clear, a circle of devotion, an unbroken bond, a future awaiting dawn's first light. As the afternoon sun dips toward the western eaves, the courtyard settles into a hushed expectancy. Imagine yourself standing just inside the open vestibule of the longhouse, where the scent of smoked fish and fresh pine mingles in the still air. Ahead, the congregation of kin and neighbors forms a loose semicircle around the makeshift altar, a sturdy slab of unpolished granite raised on 2 flat stones. 5 unlit torches flank its sides, their wooden shafts carved with simple spirals and knots. Behind you, the hush is punctuated only by the distant bleat of goats and the soft rustle of linen against wood. Your father steps forward to the altar, his cloak drawn back to reveal the runic brooch at his chest, glinting like a watchful eye. He carries no staff today. His folded hands speak of authority enough. To his left stands your future husband, tall and resolute, his copper-red hair catching the sun's dying rays. His eyes meet yours with a moment of shared calm, a silent acknowledgement that you are both travelers on the same path. A neighbor priest, robed in undyed wool, steps into the center. His voice, when he speaks, is a gentle rumble, neither hurried nor ornate. In the name of Frigg, who guards hearth and home, and Freytja, who warms the heart's embrace, we consecrate this bond. His words drift through the courtyard like soft petals on a still pond, each syllable sinking into the gathered silence. The priest gestures toward you both. Do you take him to be your lawfully wedded husband, to share bread and bed, to support and sustain him, come fortune or famine? He inclines his head slightly, as if leaning in to hear your answer. You inhale, tasting the faint sweetness of honeysuckle that a guest tucked into your hair this morning. Your voice, when you speak, is clear yet hushed. I do. The words feel weighty and light all at once, an anchor and a feather. The priest turns to your husband. And do you take her to be your lawfully wedded wife, to share bread and bed, to protect and provide for her, come war or winter? He straightens, and your husband steps forward, placing his hand, warm, calloused over his heart. I do. His vow is firm, steady as the slow rise of smoke from the hearth. Then, the moment arrives, the hand fasting. The priest lifts a length of cord, 3 strands of green-dyed flax and white linen twisted together, holding it out before the pair. By this cord, he intones, your hands are bound, your fates entwined. He loops the cord around your joined hands, winding it thrice with deliberate care. Each wrap tightens not only the cord but the shared breath between you, the steady thrum of community bearing witness. As the final loop settles, the priest ties a small knot. The cord rests lightly on your skin, its texture rough with promise. Let this binding witness your words, carry your hopes, and remind you of this day, over fields of green and under skies of steel. The knot is simple, yet resolute. 3 loops, 3 pledges, 3 woven lives. At this, a hush gives way to soft applause. Hands clapping on benches, a neighbor's muted cheer, the skirl of a harp-string plucked in celebration. The torches are lit by the maidens at the edges of the courtyard, their flames brightening the space with gentle urgency. You feel their warmth on your cheeks, as though the hearth itself has crossed the threshold to draw you closer. Your future husband reaches for a small wooden cup filled with mead. He turns to you, offering it with a respectful bow. You lift the cup, your fingers brushing his, and sip the honeyed wine, its sweetness coating your tongue, a liquid echo of the vows you've just spoken. Then he drinks, returning the cup to its place upon the altar, where it stands as both symbol and sacrament. The priest steps back, hands raised. By the eyes of gods and men, I pronounce you husband and wife. May your days be long, your challenges few, and your love endure beyond seasons. He steps aside, and for a moment, you stand enveloped in a soft glow, sunlight mingled with torchlight, the warmth of community pressing in around you. Imagine yourself here, your hand still clasped in his, the cord's fibers a gentle reminder of vows made in measured tones. The air feels alive with quiet rejoicing, the murmur of voices like a lullaby, the distant clop of horse hooves as more guests spill into the courtyard, and the steady crackle of a renewed hearth. In this convergence of ritual and everyday life, you sense a deep weaving of souls, each thread drawn taut yet supple enough to bend with the wind. And as the sun sinks fully below the tray line, you stand poised on the threshold of a new dawn, hand fastened to promise, heart cradled by ceremony. As the last embers of the handshake glow fade into comfortable warmth, your father signals to the household attendants. In a soft, unhurried cadence, they begin to distribute low, flat benches and simple wooden stools around the courtyard's periphery. You settle onto a bench draped with a clean sheepskin, its soft fleece brushing against your thighs, while your sister takes the seat beside you, arranging her woolen cloak so that it nearly brushes the ground. The courtyard is ringed now with expectant faces, neighbours, kin, and a few travelling merchants invited for their finest cheeses, each one a witness to the delicate balance of solemnity and communal warmth. Soon, trays of food emerge from the longhouse's shadow, carried by silent figures whose footsteps are muffled by the straw-strewn ground. First come platters of smoked venison, sliced thin and glistening with the sheen of oak smoke. The meat is tender, each slice releasing a gentle perfume of pine and ember. You lift a small wooden knife and slide a sliver onto your plate, then close your eyes for a moment, letting the rich savour settle across your tongue. It is a flavour that speaks of distant woodlands and patient hunts, hard-won sustenance made graceful in its preparation. Next arrives a woven basket of boiled carrots glazed with honey. The carrots' bright orange contrasts vividly with the muted earth tones of the courtyard. Each piece is plump and sweet, sticky to the touch, and you can't resist the impulse to wipe your fingers on the edge of the basket, an etiquette even the most fastidious would forgive today. You offer one to your husband's father, who nods in appreciative approval and bites into it with a pleased sigh, the sticky honey sparkling on his beard like tiny captured suns. Between the platters, bowls of barley flatbread are passed around. Round, thick, and still warm from the communal hearth's baking stone. You tear off a piece, feeling its dense, hearty weight in your hand, and fold it around a slice of smoked venison. With this makeshift sandwich in hand, you lean toward your sister and remark, in a dry tone, "I dare say if someone had offered me this for breakfast, I might have pledged my loyalty twice over." She snorts quietly, and you both share a conspiratorial grin, embers of amusement flickering between you. On the long table at the head of the courtyard, the mead horn stands ready, its curved form carved from polished antler. The mead itself is pale gold, and when you first raise the horn, the light catches the surface like a captured sunrise. You sip slowly, mindful of its sweetness and gentle warmth. Legends say mead fortifies both body and spirit. Today it feels like a subtle elixir of confidence. A neighbour begins to strum a lyre, its 4 strings tuned to a mellow, resonant pitch. The music unfurls like a soft breeze through willow leaves, steady, unhurried. Another of your father's kin taps a small frame drum at the tempo of the lyre, adding a muted heartbeat to the melody. The combination is neither grand nor ostentatious, but perfectly suited to the courtyard's intimacy. As the song drifts through the air, you close your eyes and let the vibrations travel along your spine, a lullaby woven from wood and animal gut. A light joke drifts across the table. One of the envoys nudges a neighbour, whispering that if the feast grows any more sumptuous, he might demand a second munda. Laughter ripples through the crowd like the gentle lap of water against a boat's hull. Even your husband allows himself a broad smile, his eyes softening as he watches you. You catch his eye, and in that shared glance there is both warmth and tenderness, a reminder that beneath these public rituals lies a personal promise. Between bites and sips, your thoughts wander to the torches now set alight along the longhouse eaves. Their flames flicker in time with the lyre's melody, casting long, dancing shadows on the stacked firewood and tethering posts. The scent of burning pine needles mingles with the honeyed mead, the earthy barley, and the smoky venison, a tapestry of aromas that anchors you fully in this moment. As the feast winds down, plates are cleared by quiet hands, and the instruments fall silent, but the afterglow remains, the gentle hum of conversation, the flickering torchlight, the soft murmur of cats weaving through straw. In the hush that follows, you feel the day's solemnity and subtle festivity intertwine, ritual and revelry, binding you to both tradition and joy. And as you lean back against your bench's sheepskin, you realize that this feast, with its understated elegance and gentle humor, is itself a kind of hand-fasting, a communal bond of shared sustenance, laughter, and quiet remembrance of what truly endures. As the last of the day's light slips beneath the horizon, a hushed transformation begins to settle over the longhouse courtyard. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of the great doors, the air now cool with evening dew and heavy with the scent of pine resin and smouldering peat. The bustle of feasting hands and murmured conversation has slowly faded into a soft murmur, as though the world itself is drawing a gentle breath before the next ritual unfolds. Along the length of the longhouse, torches have been lit one by one. Their flames flicker like distant fireflies caught in a slow dance, amber tongues licking upward, casting quivering shadows on the stacked timber and stone walls. Each torch is carved with simple knotwork, a silent testament to the artisan's care and the community's shared history. Their gentle glow paints the courtyard in soft relief, wood grain made luminous, stone edges softened, and faces etched in warm chiaroscuro. Beyond the torches, a narrow path has been strewn with fresh evergreen boughs, spruce needles carpeting the ground in deep, verdant green. As you step onto this path, the needles yield with a faint crunch beneath your sandals, releasing a whisper of resinous perfume that clings to your senses. The path leads deliberately to a low platform built for tonight's nuptial rite, a bridal couch draped in the finest linen, its edges embroidered with spirals of silver thread that catch the firelight like dewdrops on spider silk. Imagine yourself moving slowly along this path, every step measured and reverent. The hush of the courtyard deepens, broken only by the soft crackle of torch flames and the distant trill of a lone lark settling into night. The evergreens at your feet seem to pulse with memory, each needle a silent witness to generations of brides who walked this very way, their hearts poised between world-old customs and the promise of new beginnings. At the platform's center stands the bridal couch, its wooden frame carved from ash, the grain flowing in gentle curves reminiscent of ocean waves. The mattress is piled with layers of wool and linen, soft enough to cradle two bodies beneath its folds. A delicate curtain of white linen hangs behind it, suspended from a bent wood rod, its surface rippling like water in a midday breeze. Though still, it seems alive in the torchlight, its folds alive with anticipation. Your gaze drifts upward to the ceremonial canopy woven of willow branches and fresh blossoms, sprigs of meadowsweet and heather interlaced overhead. Their subtle fragrance drifts down to mingle with the air's cooler notes, creating a heady, calming perfume. You inhale deeply, letting the sweetness settle in your chest, a gentle reminder that even in rites of union there is room for solace and sensory wonder. Standing before the couch, you hear the soft chant of the neighbor priest, his voice low and even, a murmur that threads through the courtyard like silk through a loom. Though you cannot make out the words from your place at the path's end, you feel the rhythm of his tone, steady, unhurried, reassuring. It is a lullaby of ancient origin, a call to stillness that draws each breath into a slower cadence. A hush falls once more, and you imagine the bride and groom stepping onto the platform side by side. They pause beneath the canopy, their hands lightly touching, fingers brushing like bird wings in flight. The priest's chant transforms into a single resonant tone, and the couple leans in, their shoulders almost touching, breath mingling in the flickering light. The curtain behind them stirs as though responding to their union, a silent witness fluttering in the hush. Though you remain at the path's beginning, you sense the communal heartbeat click into a singular rhythm here. One breath, one moment, one vow. The hush envelops you like a cloak, carrying you forward in spirit, even as your feet remain upon the spruce needles. You feel the bride's pulse, the groom's steadiness, and the silent chorus of ancestors who stand with them in quiet support. Then, as suddenly as it began, the chant fades. The curtain stills, the torch's flames settle into gentle glow, and the hush lingers like a sigh. You step away from the path, leaving space for the final moments of the ritual to play out. The evergreen boughs beneath your feet release one last whisper of pine, a parting benediction. Imagine yourself now stepping back into the courtyard's wider circle, the promise of the nuptial night hanging between earth and sky. The hush of expectation has given way to a soft calm, an invitation to rest, to reflect, and to dream of what lies beyond these ancient rites. In that gentle glow, with torchlight still flickering against stone and timber, let your thoughts drift as freely as the breeze through the boughs, carrying you towards sleep's embrace, and closer still to the dawn of a new chapter. Imagine yourself stepping up the winding stone path to Jarl Helgi's hall on a midsummer's eve. The air is warm, rich with the tang of sea salt carried on a gentle breeze, and the faint sweetness of blooming heather lining the shore. As you approach, the longhouse's massive oak doors stand open, spilling golden torchlight, and the low hum of voices into the dusk. You pause, adjusting the folds of your linen cloak, and let your eyes wander over the scene. Banners of red and gold hanging from timber beams, long tables heaped with roast boar, and platters of fresh berries, warriors leaning against benches, and harp strings plucked in soft irregular plucks that mimic the ebb and flow of waves upon the beach. At the hearth centre, Jarl Helgi himself presides. His wolf pelt cloak drapes over one shoulder, its grey fur still bearing the faint musk of the hunt. When he laughs, it is a deep, even rumble, less a roar than a slow drumbeat that sets the tempo for the hall. You can almost feel the vibrations in the floorboards, a comforting reminder that this is a seat of power, where oaths are sworn and alliances forged. Yet amid the revelry, your gaze is drawn to another presence, Ursa, the Jarl's niece. She sits at the far end of the table, yet somehow commands its length. Picture her there, poised as though carved from the same stone as the hearth's mantle, her auburn hair caught in a loose braid, the glow of the torches bouncing off each wave. Her linen shift is simple, undyed and unadorned, but the way it drapes over her shoulders suggests confidence rather than modesty. She listens to the harp's melody as if each note were a secret only she can decipher, lips curved in a slight, knowing smile. It's said she mastered the skald's poetry nearly as soon as she learnt to walk. Tonight she regales a small knot of chieftains with whispered lines of verse that draw appreciative nods and occasional chuckles. As the boar bones clatter into shared dishes and the mead horn circulates again, the hall's atmosphere shifts. Through the doorway strides a new figure, King Adils of Sweden. Imagine him emerging from the twilight, his presence as deliberate as a wave rolling ashore. His cloak of embroidered silk trails behind him, each silver rune woven into its folds shimmering like captured moonlight. Though he enters quietly, no grand proclamation or herald, his arrival halts the song and stills the knives on wooden boards. You feel the hush descend as the assembled company inclines their heads in recognition, a sovereign among lesser rulers. Adils moves with the calm assurance of someone accustomed to command. His boots are polished leather, soft-soled for silent approach. The scent of cinnamon and fir lingers on his cloak, a subtle persuasion that sets him apart from the smoky warmth of the Jarl's hearth. He pauses before Helgi, bowing so that his braided hair sweeps the earth, then straightens in one smooth motion. The Jarl's broad shoulders shift in acknowledgement, and without a word they clasp forearms, a greeting that speaks of mutual respect, though neither smile betrays their true intentions. Your attention returns to Ursa. By candlelight, you see her eyes lift to meet Adilas's gaze. It's a glance that lasts only a fragment of a breath. Yet in that instant you sense a curious flicker, astonishment perhaps, or intrigue. She withdraws her gaze as if reluctant to display emotion, but the faint rise of her lashes suggests the stirrings of something unexpected. Nearby, a harpist strums a single note, and a hush falls once more, mirroring the charged moment between two yet-to-be strangers. Around you, whispers ripple through the hall. Some speak of Ursa's beauty, others murmur about her lineage, how she is Helgi's favourite, raised with tales of both pride and caution. You recall the rumours that shadowed her childhood, tales of a brother who vanished at sea, whispers of a forbidden affection that sought to breach clan lines. Tonight, however, those rumours lie dormant, eclipsed by the gravity of Adils's arrival. He takes a seat on a bench carved from elderwood, opposite Ursa's table end. A servant pours mead into a horn and offers it to him. As he raises the horn to his lips, his eyes sweep over the gathered kin with polite attention. Then, with an almost imperceptible tilt of his head, he inclines toward Ursa, as though inviting her into a conversation that will reshape both their destinies. In this hushed moment, caught between the crackling fire and the whispering winds outside, you sense the turning of fate's wheel. The banquet continues, but the real feast has only just begun. A meeting that will ripple through saga and lore alike, testing the bonds of kinship and the reach of ancient taboos. And as the torchlight dances on oak and stone, you too become witness to a story that promises to redefine what you believed you knew about love, loyalty, and the hidden currents that bind us all. Imagine the hall emptied of its formal gaiety. The long tables have been cleared, save for a few scattered goblets and a stray plate of dried berries left abandoned in the corner. A hush has settled beneath the low beams, broken only by the soft scrape of sandals on packed earth and the distant susurrus of the shoreline waves. You stand hidden behind a darkened pillar, your breath catching as two silhouettes emerge from the gloom, Ursa and King Adils. They move with a deliberate caution, their steps light as the hush of deer in the forest. Ursa's cloak of undyed wool falls in folds around her shoulders. It smells faintly of lavender, her mother's favoured sachet tucked into the folds. Adil's cloak, heavier and embroidered with silver thread, swishes softly against the floor. In the torchlight that spills through the open doorway, you see her hair catch a stray gleam, like autumn leaves trembling in moonlight. They pause where the firelight fades into shadows. Adilas turns to her, his voice almost no louder than a whisper, "Ursa." It drifts through the hall like a leaf on a summer breeze, soft but insistent. She presses a hand to her chest, steadying the rapid beat of her heart. "My lord," she replies, voice calm but edged with something deeper, apprehension lacing the words as finely as dew on grass. He reaches out, brushing a strand of her hair back behind her ear. You sense the tension in her shoulders ease under that simple touch, as though she finds in it both permission and relief. The torchlight glints on his silver runes, and you realize that this moment, so hushed and intimate, holds more weight than any public vow. Adalul steps closer, lowering his voice even further. "They know of my kingdom's bounty, but not of my heart's longing," he murmurs. "I came not only to honor your uncle, but also to speak truth, that I see in you not a captive niece but a queen in waiting." His words hover between them like warm air, charged with possibility. Ursa inhales slowly, tasting the tang of salt from the fjord beyond the hall's walls. "You risk much," she replies, glancing toward the main chamber where torches still flicker. "My uncle's wrath is as fierce as any winter storm. If he learns of our flight—" She lets the sentence trail off, the unspoken consequence sharp as the edge of a blade. He lifts her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Better a storm in the open sea than a lifetime in a gilded cage," he says. "With me, you will stand beside a king whose crown is earned by more than birthright. Together we will shape a realm where your voice is respected." His gaze holds hers with unwavering steadiness, the silver threads in his cloak quivering in approval. A pulse of wind stirs the hall's curtains, and for a moment both faces are illuminated, hers drawn with vulnerability and resolve, his marked by fierce dedication. You feel the pull of their shared determination, as though the walls themselves lean in to witness this choice. Ursa's heart hammers against her ribs, yet her voice remains clear. "Then let us go," she whispers. "Tonight." He nods, his expression softening in relief. He steps back to retrieve a small leather pouch from his belt, keys to his personal longship moored beyond the cove. "Gather what you must," he instructs quietly. "I will have horses led to the shore, and a swift skiff to carry us past any prying eyes." Ursa draws in a steadying breath, then turns to slip away. As she moves, you see the cloak's hem brush against a discarded helmet, the stark symbol of the hall's martial might. It lies abandoned now, much like the shields and spears that once signified her uncle's authority. Each echoing footstep carries her further from one life and closer to another. You watch as Adals extinguishes the torch in his hand, plunging them into near total darkness. Their forms melt into the shadows, leaving only your wide-eyed witness in the flickering afterglow. Outside, the wind carries a distant cry of seabirds settling for the night, a soft lament of departure and freedom entwined. In this silent embrace of risk and resolve, Yrsa and Adals ignite the spark of elopement. A single choice whispered vows in moonlit corridors will send ripples through kinship bonds and law codes alike. And as you step back from the pillar, heart still pounding, you sense that the greatest flame of all has just been lit, the fire of personal will that no law can fully contain. As dawn's pale light washes over the empty hall, Jarl Helgi stands alone amidst the scattered benches and cold hearth. The echoes of last night's revelry have faded, leaving only the faint scent of pine smoke and spilled mead. In this hushed aftermath, he turns to a battered chest at the foot of his high bench, pulling from it a folded parchment, his copy of the Gragas, the revered Icelandic law book. Though these statutes were penned a world away, they have guided Norse justice for generations. Today they offer both path and obstacle to the Jarl's grief-swollen heart. Helgi smooths the parchment against the table, its surface creased like ripples in a mountain lake. He opens to chapter 45, where the treaties of kin and marriage are laid bare. Whosoever seduces a kinswoman, be she niece, sister or cousin, must render thrice the mundum her father demands, and face outlawry should payment falter. The Jarl's finger traces the runes as though seeking reassurance. Incest, in this context, is more than a moral offence. It is a rupture in the clan's blood bond tapestry. Such a breach draws the ire of both earthly kin and the unseen forces of other, a madness or fury believed to curse those who transgress sacred lines. Helgi's heart tightens as he reads on. To avoid feud, the offender may offer Wergild double the standard rate, made at the next thing, and publicly recant his trespass. He exhales slowly, the parchment's edges whispering secrets under his breath. Twice the Wergild, that is, a hefty price indeed. And yet, it is not only gold and silver at stake, but the very honour of House Helgi. To accept payment without vengeance would seem lenient. To pursue blood would risk perpetual feud. Here Gragas offers a third clause. Where personal injury outranks property loss, the wronged kin may demand outlandish restitution or the offender's exile. Helgi's gaze drifts upward, as if expecting Yrsa's pale silhouette to appear in the doorway. His grief is tempered by duty. In the eyes of Gragas, Yrsa is both victim and violator, a niece stolen and a wrongdoer who breached taboo. His mind flickers to the law on adultery, which Gragas treats with similar gravity. Adultery by a married woman warrants fine, and divorce by a married man, a third-party woman's Wergild, suffices. He notes the asymmetry. Women pay more dearly than men for the same offence. A light sarcasm curves his lips, such is the justice of bygone days. Yet Helgi suppresses both ire and cynicism. His task is clear. He must summon Adil's envoys and demand restitution that satisfies both law and heart. Across the fjord, in the Swedish king's hall, Adil's too consults open scrolls. He knows that to simply place Yrsa on his throne without reckoning would invite ill winds, so he dispatches a courier bearing gifts of silver and amber, offerings not just of wealth but of contrition. Yet Gragas demands more than trinkets. Adil's envoy arrives at Helgi's longhouse, presenting an ornate chest. Helgi opens it to reveal exactly twice the normal wergild, 70 ounces of silver, each piece marked by the Swedish mint. He counts meticulously, measure by measure, the scale of law rendered real. Then he reads the final passage. When restitution is thus made, the wronged party shall accept the atonement, and feuds shall cease on oath-sworn peace. With measured breath, Helgi nods to the envoys. In that acceptance, he honours both the letter and spirit of Gregor, choosing law's compromise over endless bloodshed. And though his broken heart still aches, he feels the first cautious stirrings of peace. Thus, kinship, taboo, and statute entwine in a careful dance, reminding us that even in the throes of scandal, Norse society valued order as much as passion. Let the echo of these ancient laws settle around you, sturdy as stone, deliberate as measured steps, guiding our tale onward with the same patient resolve. Imagine yourself standing at the threshold of Jarl Helgi's great hall once again, though the air now crackles not with revelry but with a tense expectancy. Through the open doors you see the longships drawn onto the shore. Sleek hulls of polished oak, their dragon-headed prows glinting in the morning light. 50 oars rest alongside, each wrapped in cloth to muffle their runners' thud against the earth, a silent promise of swift departure if words falter. Inside, the hall is hushed. Torches flicker along the walls, their flames dancing over banners, still bearing last night's wine stains and festive runes. The central hearth casts a warm glow, but even its steady light cannot banish the chill that clings to the assembled crowd. You feel it settle in your bones, the weight of expectation, the hush of history pressing tight. At the head of the hall, Jarl Helgi stands in silhouette against the hearth. His wolf-pelt cloak hangs back, revealing broad shoulders squared with determination. Across from him strides King Adil's, cloak now forsaken for a simple tunic of deep red wool, its colour echoing both the boar's roast and the blood-tinted promise of justice. Each step he takes resonates through the timbered floor as though he treads on destiny itself. At his side walks an envoy bearing an ornate chest of carved birchwood. The lid is carved with scenes of ships battling waves, a reminder that every journey carries risk. Your breath catches as the envoy places the chest before Helgi's bench. The Jarl's gaze meets the envoy's, solemn and unblinking, as though weighing not only the gift but the intent behind it. Adil speaks first, his voice a calm tide. Jarl Helgi, I come not as an aggressor, but as one seeking to restore what once was, he says. Accept this gift of gold and amber, not as tribute, but as the wergild twice over, for the pain caused your kin. The envoy's hands unlatch the chest, and Helgi leans forward to peer inside. You imagine yourself moving closer, drawn by the soft clink of metal on wood. Helgi lifts the first handful of gold rings, turning them in his palm. They shine like captured sunlight, and each bears the Swedish rune for peace. Then come pouches of amber, smooth, honey-coloured beads that gleam with promise. The hall remains silent, save for the gentle tinkle of amber against gold. Helgi's voice is low when he speaks. By Gragas, this payment meets the law's demand, yet law alone cannot bind the hearts of kin. He lays the rings back in the chest and closes the lid with measured firmness. Your wergild is accepted, King Adil's, but I ask more. A pledge of alliance through blood, not merely silver. His words hang between them, soft yet resolute. Adil's inclines his head, and you sense the subtle shift, an alliance sealed not only by coin but by kinship. Name your terms, Jarl. Adil's replies, and they shall be honoured. Helgi glances toward the pillar where Yrsa once stood, her figure absent but her presence palpable. Let Yrsa be wed to your son, a proposed union that would bind the Swedish and Helgi's lines for generations. Let her hold the rank of princess, with lands to govern and voice in council. The envoy's eyes widen momentarily. Lands and title are far dearer than any bullion. Adil smiles, a gentle curve that speaks both relief and respect. So it shall be, he affirms, and in return I grant you passage through my waters and safe escort of your traders along our coasts. A soft murmur ripples through the hall. Approval, wonder, cautious optimism. You feel the tension ebb as the two rulers extend hands across the hall's breadth, joining palms in a handshake that echoes the earlier Munda Pact in Segment 1. The torchlight catches their grips, solid, unhurried, a promise of mutual honor. As the handshake releases, a neighbor strikes the first note on a harp, its melody gentle as the tides outside. The envoys begin to exchange small gifts, a carved comb of walrus ivory for Helgi's steward, a bolt of Swedish linen for the Jarl's wife. The smoky warmth of pine fires mingles with the softer perfume of beeswax candles, and you sense the hall exhale as one. In this high-stakes negotiation, metal and blood, law and desire weave together into a new fabric of alliance. Let the echo of that alliance settle in your mind like the distant rhythm of oars on water, steady, deliberate, carrying the promise of peace across both fjord and future. In the hush that follows the high-stakes negotiation, Jarl Helgi and King Adels stand momentarily apart, framed by the flickering torchlight. You can almost hear the distant whisper of waves as they settle into a gentle rhythm, a quiet counterpoint to the hall's earlier tension. At last Helgi inclines his head in solemn acceptance. "Your terms honor both law and kinship," he says, voice measured yet warm. "Let Yrsa remain with you as queen, and let the alliance between our houses stand firm." Ardiles returns the bow, his expression softening in relief. He turns to his envoys and motions toward the longships drawn up on the beach. "Prepare my vessel," he instructs. "For tomorrow at first light we shall journey to Uppsala, where Yrsa will assume her place beside me." The envoys exchange quick nods and slip away, their footsteps echoing like raindrops on slate. As the chest of Wergild is sealed once more, and the final embers of dispute smoulder into the hearth, Helgi steps forward, crossing the hall's full length. The wooden floorboards creak beneath his boots, each sound a reminder that even the grandest pacts rest upon simple actions. He stops before the empty seat where Yrsa once presided during the feast. The torchlight reveals the carved initials on the bench's arm, her mark made in childhood to claim her place in the lineage. Helgi's hand hovers a moment before he traces the carving with a fingertip. In that touch lies both farewell and blessing. Outside, a neighbor strikes a single note on his horn, a soft fanfare meant not for triumph but for transition. The assembled guests rise, moving in quiet procession toward the hall's wide doors. You follow them into the courtyard, where the salt-tinged air carries the mingled scents of pine, seaweed, and distant hearth fires. The longships wait under a canopy of stars, their hulls soothed by a recent coat of tar and the patient care of shipwrights. Torches flare along the docks, marking the path for the departing queen. Before she leaves, Yrsa appears at the doorway, flanked by Jarl Helgi's family. Her linen shift rustles softly as she steps into the courtyard, eyes luminous in the torchlight. You see the flash of her hair, ripe wheat in the fire's glow, and the gentle curve of her shoulders as she carries both hope and sorrow. Helgi approaches her with a small wooden chest in hand. He opens it to reveal a simple brooch of bronze shaped like a raven in flight, its wings outstretched. "For your cloak, that you may carry a piece of home with you," he whispers. Yrsa accepts the brooch, fastening it at her throat with practiced care. The metal is cool against her skin, and you sense the steadiness it imparts. She turns to face the assembled company, and for a heartbeat the hush is absolute. Then, with a slight lift of her chin, she addresses them in a voice both firm and calm. "Though my path leads me across seas, the bonds of blood and law will endure. May our families find in this union a peace that outlasts seasons." Her words ripple across the courtyard, woven into the night air like a gentle benediction. As the longship's crew cast off the ropes, the vessel drifts free, its prow cutting a silver path through the moonlit water. You watch as Yrsa stands at the bow, cloak billowing, torches reflected in her eyes. The murmurs of the crowd fade with each oar stroke, until only the soft splash of oars remains, matching the steady pulse of your own breath. In the days that follow, news of the alliance spreads from fjord to dale. At the next thing, sagas are recited that frame the elopement, not merely as scandal, but as a reshaping of legal precedent, an affirmation that even the strictest taboos can yield to the force of personal will and diplomatic accord. Gragas's statutes grow footnotes in new manuscripts, annotated with the tale of Yrsa and Ardils, a caution and a beacon both. And so the legacy of this saga endures, a story of kinship and taboo, negotiation and forgiveness, where the weight of law met the power of love. Let the ripples of this resolution settle in your mind like the tide at dusk, gentle, persistent, and ever guiding us toward understanding the delicate balance between duty and desire. Imagine yourself stepping lightly into a damp woodland clearing at dawn, where mist drapes the trees like a gossamer veil, and each breath you draw tastes faintly of pine resin and loam. Beneath your feet, the forest floor is soft with moss and fallen needles, muffling your steps as you approach a shallow depression in the earth, ringed by stones darkened with age. This is one of the fertility pits used in the ancient blot ceremonies, sites where communities gathered each spring to renew their bond with the land, to plead for fruitful fields and thriving herds. At Tissø on the island of Zealand, the largest known pit spans nearly 20 meters across. You imagine the chill in the air as villagers trace a slow circle around its rim, their breath misting in the rising sun. The pit's sides are layered like the rings of a great tree, each stratum a record of offerings past. Excavators have uncovered thick crescents of cattle horn, their tips chipped deliberately, and fragments of swine jawbones arranged with care. In one layer, a scattering of fish vertebrae hints that both land and sea were honored in the same ritual, tooth by tooth, vertebra by vertebra, each piece a token of respect to the spirits of water and field. As you lean over the edge, you spot the faint outlines of antler tines pressed into the clay, perhaps the remains of a stag's crown, offered to Freya in hopes of virility and abundance. The soil here is dark and rich, flecked with tiny charcoal particles where torches once burned. Close your eyes and you might almost smell the resinous smoke that curled skyward, mingling with the pine-scented breeze. Further north at Birka, on an island in Lake Mälaren, a smaller pit reveals a different palette of offerings. Here, tiny charred kernels of barley lie intermingled with goose-wing bones, their hollow shafts glinting like pale reeds. Pollen analysis tells us these offerings fell in late April, when birch and alder were in full bloom. You can almost hear the crackle of new leaves unfurling as nearby shards of painted Frankish ceramics attest to the Vikings' far-reaching trade networks. A neighbour's joke might have been, if we ask enough of Teutonic sprites, perhaps we'll get a harvest fit for a king, and some fashionable cups at the same time. At Gamla Uppsala, once the religious centre of Sweden, excavation has revealed multiple overlapping pits. Each was used for only a season, then filled and abandoned for a fresh one, as if the earth itself demanded periodic renewal. Imagine stepping into one such hollow and finding it lined with flat stones, older than any standing building you've seen, bearing the faint chisel marks of forgotten stonemasons. In the centre, a shallow basin carved into bedrock held liquids poured as libations, perhaps mead, perhaps sacred ale, its surface glimmering like quicksilver in torchlight. Across Scandinavia, from Denmark's bogs to Norway's fjordlands, these pits share common threads: the careful placement of horn and bone, the echo of festival laughter carried on the wind, and the soft quivering of plants awakening beneath the earth. Yet each site also bears unique signatures: local deer antler instead of cow horn, wildflower garlands woven rather than reed mats laid. It's as if each community sang its own melody to the same ancient hymn of spring. Running your fingers along a protruding antler shard, you feel both the cool hardness of bone and the gentle tremor of millennia. The ground beneath seems alive with memory, as though every footstep you take disturbs more than soil. It stirs echoes of chanting voices, of drums marking the heartbeat of communal hope. And in that moment you understand that these archaeological traces are more than relics. They are touchstones of human yearning. Each horn, each jawbone, each flake of pottery is a verse in a song of renewal, an invitation to witness how our ancestors sought continuity between earth and spirit. The pits stand as silent oracles, reminding us that every harvest must begin with a humble offering, every spring with a ritual of trust. So let your breath slow, and imagine the pit's rim cradling your gaze. Feel the soft moss beneath your hand, the cool breeze against your cheek, and let the quiet power of those fertility rites settle within you. An ancient lullaby of hope, unfolding like a blossom in the soft light of dawn. Imagine yourself stepping from the dense forest edge into a wide clearing, where a long row of benches and low tables await beneath open sky. The first blush of spring has kissed the world awake. Tender shoots of grass peek through mossy stones, willow trees drip with catkins like droplets of pale gold, and the air is alive with the trill of newly returned skylarks. At the far end of the clearing, beside a shallow fertility pit ringed with ancient stones, a roaring hearth sends embers drifting upward, the promise of warmth and sustenance. This is the heart of the Feast of Renewal, the communal spring feast that follows the sacrificial offering into the fertility pit. Here, the promise of new life, of fields turning green, of lambs gambolling in pastures, of the returning thrush's song, finds its joyous expression in shared food, fellowship, and gentle revelry. Breathe deeply now, letting the mingled scents of pine smoke, budding flowers, and roasting meat fill your lungs. Allow your shoulders to drop, your breath to lengthen, and your thoughts to settle into the steady rhythm of celebration. As dawn softens into morning, neighbors arrive bearing simple stools carved from alder, benches draped in sheepskins, and trays heaped with spring's first offerings. You see the miller's wife, her hair bound with a garland of buttercups, cradling a wooden bowl of salted fish roe. You glimpse the elders' grandchildren, their cheeks flushed with cold, carrying wicker baskets brimming with fresh wild garlic and ramps. Even the sturdiest of hunters arrives with his catch, plump freshwater trout, their silver scales glinting in the torchlight, wrapped in leaves of birch for both perfume and steam. Each arrival brings its own murmur of greeting. May Freya favor your sowing. May our herds multiply under a waxing moon. I bring the first sheaf of barley. May our granaries never lie empty. With each exchanged greeting, the sense of communal purpose deepens. You walk among them, nodding to old friends and strangers alike, feeling a shared pulse of anticipation. This is not merely a meal, it is a binding of hearts and hopes, an enactment of the ancient covenant between humankind and the living earth. Children dart between parents' legs, their laughter clear as water over stones. They chase one another around the benches, brandishing sprigs of meadow sweet as playful swords. The neighbor scolds them gently, "Not so near the embers, young ones," and they skitter back with giggles, the urgency of childhood a charming counterpoint to the solemnity of ritual. Even the cats of the longhouse appear, weaving among legs and benches, purring for tidbits of smoked fish or crusts of barley bread. Their rhythmic purrs blend with the murmur of conversation, grounding the feast in the familiar comforts of home. Low tables fashioned from split logs bear the weight of braided rush mats, their fibers still faintly green from the riverbank. On these mats rest heavy wooden platters, each carved with simple runic motifs. The spiral of life, the branching of the world tree, the interlace of kinship bonds. Atop the platters are dishes arranged with deliberate care, rows of oatcakes folded around slivers of pickled herring, neat pyramids of boiled carrots glazed with honey and sprinkled with caraway seeds, bowls of barley porridge dotted with spring onions and fresh herbs. The benches flanking the tables are layered with sheepskins of cream and grey, their wool soft beneath bare legs. Some skalds sit among the guests, their harps resting against their knees, strings tuned to a gentle, open chord that beckons the heart to slow. Others hold small frame drums, their skins weathered yet taut, ready to add a heartbeat to the lyre's whisper. Every element, table, bench, instrument has its place in this living tapestry. You take a seat beside the miller's wife, offering a respectful nod as your hand brushes the sheepskin. The warmth seeps through your tunic, a subtle reminder of hearth's embrace. A neighbor slides a wooden bowl of stew across the table to you, the aroma rising in soft clouds of savory promise. In this moment you are both witness and participant, cocooned in a gentle stillness that hums with collective expectation. The skald lifts a lyre's sound with a single, resonant pluck. An overture to the feast. A hush falls, broken only by the soft clink of wooden spoons against bowls. Before you rests the first course, a rich barley stew, its grains cooked soft in a broth of spring water and lightly salted pork. Scattered atop are ribbons of wild garlic and fresh ramps, leafy tendrils that smell of the earth's first green. The stew's steam carries hints of savory pork, the warmth of salt, and the crisp clarity of newly sprouted herbs. You dip your wooden spoon, feeling its sweep gather both thick grains and delicate greens. Bringing a spoonful to your lips, you close your eyes for a moment, letting the flavors tangle on your tongue. The barley yields easily, each kernel a subtle echo of summer sunshine. The greens snap faintly beneath your teeth, releasing a grassy sweetness that balances the stew's depth. It is simple nourishment, yet in this context profoundly sustaining, an affirmation of life's renewal. A light joke ripples through the assembled diners. If Freya tastes half as good as this stew, I will offer him my best ram next year. A neighbor raises a horn in mock salute, the deep laughter that follows rolling like distant thunder. You feel the warmth of shared humor, a thread of mirth weaving through the feast. Once the barley stew bowls have been emptied, the second course appears. Platters of freshly baked oatcakes arranged in neat circles, bowls of salted fish roe beside them, and thin slices of cold smoked trout. The oatcakes, flat, round and springy, bear the imprint of a carved wooden mold, their surfaces marked with geometric patterns signifying the cycles of the moon. Their aroma is warm and grainy, a hint of earth that pairs perfectly with the briny tang of roe. You break an oatcake in half, its crisp edge giving way to a tender crumb. Spreading a thin smear of butter on one half, you scoop a small spoonful of roe atop it. The first bite is an orchestra, The buttery grain, the salt-crisp bursts of roe, the lingering echo of the sea. You close your eyes to savor the interplay, the soft crackle of roe against your tongue, the mellow warmth of oats. The skald tunes his lyre to a gentle ballad, notes trembling like stars reflected in a still lake. A hush descends as he sings of ancient love, of goddesses and heroes, of moonlit trysts and vows whispered through reeds. His voice is soft, unfurled like silk, inviting you to drift along its melody. The feast becomes a kind of accompaniment to his music, the clink of cups, the scratch of bowls, the low hum of voices praising both dish and song. Following the fish course, baskets of root vegetables make their way around the tables. Honey-glazed carrots, turnips and parsnips roasted with sprigs of thyme, and beets boiled until their ruby juice stains the skin. Each vegetable glistens with honey's gloss, the tiny scarlet and amber facets catching torchlight like jewels. You take a carrot, its surface sticky with honey and flecked with thyme leaves. As you bite in, you feel the tender yield of cooked carrot give way to a burst of sweetness. The sticky juice trails down your chin, and you brush it away with a laughter-flecked apology to your neighbor. He offers you a cloth, teasing that next year carrots might come with built-in napkins. Between bites, someone offers you a bowl of stew made from spring onions and goat's milk. Its consistency thinner than the barley stew, with a fresh tang that cleanses the palate. You sip it gratefully, the cool milk contrasting the honeyed warmth of the carrots. As the final vegetables are passed, the mead horn is produced, a curved antler carved with knotwork, filled with pale, effervescent mead. You lift it, feeling its weight balanced in your hand. When you sip, the liquid coats your mouth with sweetness, honey fermented with wild yeasts, its effervescence tickling your palate. The mead warms your chest, a glow that ripples outward. A neighbor toasts, voice rich and steady. To spring's return, to fields fat with promise, and to the bonds that bind us closer than winter frost. You echo the toast with a soft scowl, the horn's rim brushing your lips. As the warm mead slides down your throat, you close your eyes and let the communal spirit enfold you like a sheepskin cloak. With bellies content, the drummers raise their hands and coax a gentle rhythm from their frame drums, a heartbeat to accompany the lyre's lullaby. The style is neither raucous nor somber, but a comfortable middle, a musical hammock rocking you gently. Some stand to dance, a stately circle dance where hands rest on neighbors' shoulders, steps measured and calm, as if honoring the earth's slow turn rather than racing forward. The skald interjects with a light jest, weaving a man's songre, an erotic poem toned down to polite company standards. He recites in a low, melodic murmur. Your eyes outshine the budding fields, your breath more sweet than summer's yields. Should Freyr gaze upon your grace, he'd yield his throne for but one embrace. A gentle laughter ripples, cheeks flush with warmth and amusement. The poem's soft suggestion of desire, veiled in pastoral metaphor, fits the feast's balance of reverence and human intimacy. As the music fades to a whisper, the community rises to gather the remnants, empty bowls, scraped plates, and the few generous slices of barley bread left intact. With care, each is carried back to the fertility pit's rim. You join in, placing your bowl's charcoal-streaked grains atop the pit's edge. Others drop fish bones, carrot peels, and crumbled oatcakes into the earthen mouth of renewal. Each offering returns to the earth, completing the cycle begun with the horn and bone in the pit itself. The mingled aromas, stew, fish, honey and bread, rise in a last plume before drifting away on the cooling breeze. In that moment you sense the continuity of seasons, the hand-in-hand dance of giving and receiving between people and land. When the offerings have been set, the torches are waved low, the skald plays a final soft chord. Elders stand to speak brief prayers. May the year be mild, the fields be green, and our hearts be ever united. You join in a final skål, feeling the resonance of voices as tangible as the hearth's warmth. Then, in pairs and small groups, the guests drift back through the forest path to their homes. Sheepskins gathered, benches stacked, hearth fires left to smoulder until morning. You walk slowly, letting the feast's lingering glow accompany your steps. The night air, fragrant with budding pine and wet earth, cools the warmth in your chest. As you emerge from the clearing's edge, look back once to where the pit stands silent and full, its stones bathed in silver moonlight. Let its quiet solidity settle in your mind. An ancient promise cast in earth and bone, renewed each year by simple offerings and shared fare. Carry that promise with you as you return to sleep, knowing that with dawn's light the cycle will begin anew, and so will the gentle heartbeat of community and land. Imagine yourself crossing the threshold of a grand Jarl's longhouse, the massive oaken doors swinging wide on iron hinges. Inside, the air is warm and faintly spiced with juniper boughs hung from the beams. The hall stretches before you, its benches draped in rich textiles, its hearth ablaze with steady logs. Yet this is no simple gathering of kin. It is the evening of the Jarl's household observance, when lawful wives, concubines and retainers assemble to mark the rhythms of authority, affection, and hierarchy that shape their intertwined lives. Imagine yourself stepping into the luminous glow of the Jarl's high hall at evening's gentle close. The stone hearth at its centre blazes, casting long honeyed shadows that dance across the polished oak floor. On the raised dais at the head of the hall sits Hallfrid, the Jarl's lawful wife, her presence as steady and assured as the hearth itself. She wears a cloak of deep emerald wool, its fabric richly embroidered with gold thread in the interlaced patterns of the world tree. The cloak is fastened at her shoulder with a broad silver brooch, an heirloom passed down through generations, its surface carved with the Jarl's family rune, and polished until it gleams like captured moonlight. As you approach, you notice how the torchlight catches the brooch's curves, revealing tiny nicks where previous generations clasped and unclasped it in solemn ceremony. Hallfrid's hair is the colour of ripe wheat, pulled back into a low braid that coils at the nape of her neck. Strands looped with small beads of polished amber catch the firelight, each bead a whisper of light, echoing the soft flicker of the embers below. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers intertwined, nails neatly trimmed, knuckles bearing faint creases from years of quiet labour at the loom and the ledger. You settle onto a bench draped with a thick sheepskin beside Hallfrid, mindful of the subtle hierarchy. Her seat nearest the hearth, yours a respectful stride lower. The sheepskin's wool is soft beneath your fingertips, its lullaby-like warmth a gentle reminder of home's enduring comforts. As the Jarl's steward offers her a cup of spiced mead, Hallfrid lifts it with the calm elegance of someone who has performed this ritual countless times. The mead horn is carved from polished antler, its surface inscribed with protective bind runes. She raises it in silence, eyes sweeping across the gathered household, noble women in silk-edged wool, skalds in muted tunics, and concubines whose seats circle the dais below. Then, with a soft scarl, she drinks, the amber liquid warming her throat and settling like liquid sun in her chest. Her rights as lawful wife are both public and private. Under regional custom, she holds first claim to the Jarl's inheritance, the fertile lands that stretch along the fjord, the grazing fields where the horses roam, and the mills along the river's edge. In the hush after her toast, you almost hear the unseen weight of those claims, heirlooms, holdings, the very soil of clans. When the Jarl later proclaims land grants or pledges, whether to skilled warriors or steadfast retainers, Hallfrid's nod is the silent seal that gives those words binding power. Yet her authority extends beyond estate management. She is the household's domestic steward, overseeing the weaving of tapestries that insulate the hall, approving the dye mixtures that give cloth its vibrant hue, and settling disputes among the kitchen staff over the proper ratio of honey to mead. This evening, as trays of honeyed carrots and barley breads pass before her, she offers a gentle correction to the head cook. A touch less juniper next time, she suggests, voice soft but firm. The cook bows, grateful for the guidance because Hallfrid's tastes are known to be both discerning and kind. In quieter moments, Hallfrid also counsels the Jarl. You may glimpse her speaking with him at the hall's far corner, heads bowed in close confidence. Their conversation is low, and though you catch no words, you sense its weight. Discussions of tribute, alliances, the welfare of dependents. As lawful wife, her wisdom carries cloth and coin authority. Her instincts, honed by years of tending both hearth and heart, inform the Jarl's decisions in council. Between the public ceremonies and the governing tasks, Hallfrid embodies the ideal of measured grace. Her laughter, when it comes, is a rare bell tone, soft, clear and treasured. Perhaps she jokes with a visiting chieftain's daughter about the peculiar texture of foreign cheese, or offers a wry observation on the Jarl's latest hunting exploit. Each light moment is a breath of warmth in the hall's steady rhythm. As you sit beside her, you feel the subtle comfort of her presence, the knowledge that in a world of shifting alliances and fierce contests, there exists a steady centre, an anchor of lineage, duty and quiet dignity. In the flicker of torchlight on her cloak's gold embroidery, you see a promise of continuity. That hearth and hall will endure through seasons of plenty and seasons of need, guided by the unwavering stewardship of the Jarl's lawful wife. Beyond the raised dais of the lawful wife, the longhouse's side benches are arranged in descending tiers. Here sit the concubines, women bound to the Jarl by personal favour rather than formal vow. It is a subtle but unmistakable distinction. Their seats are lower, their textiles plainer, yet each bears her own quiet authority in the weave of the household tapestry. At the bench closest to Hallfrith sits Embla, the Jarl's foremost concubine. Her woolen cloak is a muted slate blue, simple in hue but finely spun, its edges trimmed with narrow embroidery of interlocking rings, a discreet nod to her valued status. As the Jarl's envoy presents her with a horn of spiced mead, she raises it with a graceful tilt, neither too reserved nor too eager. Her lips part in a half-smile, and the hall's torchlight glints in the amber beads woven into her dark braid. Each bead was a gift, a token of the Jarl's esteem, strung in a pattern that echoes a binding knot, symbolizing her unique place in his household. To Embla's right and left sit younger concubines, daughters of distant Jarls and captives of lesser origin, each selected for gifts they bring, wisdom of foreign tongues, silks dyed in far-off markets, or simply the gift of youth's companionship. Their cloaks range from pale flax to deep charcoal, their hairstyles varying from simple braids to intricate knots adorned with bone pins. Though their positions are secondary, each woman holds her head with quiet dignity, aware that her favour in the Jarl's eyes can shift like spring mist. Observe the soft ritual as the Jarl, seated between Hallfrith and Embla, inclines first to his lawful wife to accept her mead, then to Embla to pour her a share. It is a gesture both personal and precise. Embla receives only a third of Hallfrith's mead, a visible testament to the hierarchy. Yet in that measure lies care. The Jarl's eyes flick to Embla with genuine warmth, acknowledging her presence without diminishing Hallfrith's precedence. Children born of these unions inhabit another layer of the pecking order. Embla's eldest son, Arnfinn, stands a few paces away, his tunic bearing the hem of Embla's blue and the Jarl's gold. Though his mother is not the lawful wife, his features, strong jaw, slanted grey eyes mirror the Jarl's own. He will not inherit the earldom, but tonight, his valour in training displays has earned him a small parcel of woodland to manage, enough to command respect among the younger warriors in waiting. You notice how the steward circulates with parchment scrolls, quietly noting which names to inscribe next to which lands. The list includes Hallfrith's sons first, then Arnfinn, then other concubine-born children. Each grant a measured gift that acknowledges lineage without equating it. Some concubines exchange discreet glances, gratitude for their children's holdings, tinged perhaps with longing for greater security. Yet no complaint rises above the low murmur of voices. They have learned early that favour is best won with composed smiles and timely counsel. In alcoves near the back, other concubines, those of servile origin, await their moments. Their cloaks are rougher, knitted from homespun wool, and their seating nearest the hearth's outer edge. Still, in this place of shadows and embers, they share in communal laughter and whispered confidences. One older concubine, Hjordis, once a slave in a southern market, now instructs the younger women in herbal remedies and the lore of midwives. Her laughter is rich and earthy as loam, and when she speaks of healing poultices, even the noble daughters lean in to listen. Throughout the evening, the Jarl moves among these women, an encouraging word to a concubine who has mastered the skaldic voice, a gentle reassurance to one whose child has yet to find favour in the hunt. No grand pronouncements, only quiet moments, fingertips brushing a cloak's edge, warm breath spoken close to an ear, the worn leather of a counselling chair set beside the hearth. In these gestures, the concubines find both sustenance and status, each touch and word weaving them deeper into the household's tapestry. And though their roles lack the formal seal of law, the concubines' influence ripples beyond the hall, shaping alliances, tending to wounded warriors, and even guiding the Jarl's glimpse of the wider world. In their measured grace and patterned presence, they stand as living reminders that power in a Viking household flows not only through blood and title, but also through the subtle channels of favour, intimacy, and shared counsel. The line between lawful wife and concubine echoes in the household ledger. Sons by Hallfrith inherit land holdings and titles. Sons by concubines may receive lesser gifts, slivers of farmland, a modest herd, a small boat, sufficient for a free life but not for the rule of earldoms. Imagine the steward reading out these grants by torchlight, the list of names echoing in the vaulted space. A hush follows each name. Delight for some, envy for others, acceptance for all. In corners of the hall, whispered glances convey stories of friction, a lawful son's quiet resentment toward his half-brother, a concubine's fear that favour may wane, a lawful wife's firm insistence that her children's claims remain unchallenged. Yet even conflict is tempered by ritual. The Jarl raises his hand, calls for silence, and reminds all of the household oath to protect both the hearth and each other, under penalty of loss of favour or even outlawry. Beyond the intimate hearthside rituals and domestic stewardship lies the broader purpose of polygyny in the Jarl's world, a subtle strategy of power woven into the very fabric of alliances. Imagine yourself standing in the dusk-lit courtyard just outside the longhouse, where envoys from distant clans linger in cloak-darkened corners, their breath misting in the cool evening air. Here, marriages serve ends far greater than personal affection. They are conduits for peace, treaties signed in silk and silver as much as in ink. The Jarl's lawful marriage to Hallfrith, daughter of a neighbouring earl, binds two great earldoms together. You recall the grand wedding feast last winter, the hall draped in white furs, the air rich with the scent of juniper and roasted swan. That union delivered fertile borderlands into unified stewardship, ensuring safe trade routes for both Jarl's merchants. In such alliances, the bride is both partner and pledge, a living testament to diplomatic accord. Yet for every primary marriage, the Jarl often takes concubines, whose origins lie beyond the immediate sphere of power. Observe the slender woman in the slate-blue cloak, Embla, herself the daughter of a minor chieftain across the sea. Her union lacks the pomp of Hallfrid's, but it carries equal strategic weight. Through her, the Jarl secures fishing rights along a distant coast and access to amber sources coveted by continental traders. You can almost see the ledger entries ticking in the steward's mind. Grant of shoreline lands in exchange for loyalty of Clan X. Polygyny thus becomes a living map of influence. Each woman in the Jarl's household represents a node in a web of alliances that radiates outward. Daughters of far-flung traders, nieces of neighbouring potentates, even the occasional princess offered by a continental king seeking Viking naval support. Their presence is an unspoken testament to the Jarl's reach, whispered among visitors as they pass beneath the carved dragons adorning the doorframe. During feasts, you might catch the Jarl's envoy leaning close to a foreign noble, mentioning Embla's lineage and the amber trade that grew from her birthright. Or hear Hallfrith's measured laughter as she recalls negotiating seam allowances on fine Frankish silks brought as bridal gifts. These anecdotes are more than idle chatter. They signal to each guest the depth of the Jarl's alliances and the diverse origins of his household. The strategic value of polygyny extends to succession too. While only the lawful wife's eldest son may bear the earldom, secondary sons by concubines are often appointed to govern newly acquired lands or to lead trading expeditions, opportunities that reinforce loyalty among allied clans. You picture Arnfinn, Embla's son, stepping into his role as captain of a trading ship bound for the Baltic, his orders carrying both his mother's clan's hopes and his father's seal of authority. Yet every alliance carries complexity. Should a concubine's kin fall out of favour, her children's positions may wobble as tides do in the fjord. The Jarl must deftly balance gifts and titles, ensuring each partner's clan feels honoured but not overshadowed. Imagine the steward poring over lists of land grants, recalibrating each parcel's size so that no single concubine-born heir amasses too much power, a precise art that demands both generosity and restraint. In the hush before council meetings, Hallfrith may counsel her husband on tempering certain alliances, cautioning that a distant clan's loyalty may waver if their daughter's favour cools. At the same moment, the Jarl might turn to Embla for news of her birth clan's sentiment, trusting her insight as much as any envoy's report. Through these personal ties, the household becomes a living intelligence network, each partner doubling as both beloved and diplomat. Thus, polygyny in the Jarl's Hall is more than a matter of household structure. It is a vital component of statecraft. Each marriage, each partnership, is a thread in a vast tapestry of negotiation and promise, stretching from the mossy stones of home to the distant courts of Europe. As you stand in the torchlit courtyard, you sense this intricate web all around you, quiet, deliberate and unhurried, like the flow of the fjord itself, carrying in its depths the weight of alliances and the promise of power. Beyond personal affection, the practice of polygyny serves a broader purpose, forging alliances. Through lawful marriage, the Jarl cements bonds with neighbouring Jarldoms. Through concubinage, he extends his influence further, taking daughters of lesser lords or even foreign princesses as secondary partners, each alliance a thread in the web of power. You might see a young woman of distant kinship, her tapestry-clad shoulders bearing the colours of another realm. She is both a symbol of diplomatic connection and a reminder that favour here is ephemeral. Amid hushed laughter and the clink of horn cups, you grasp the profound duality of these relationships. Personal intimacy and public strategy intertwined, each ripple of affection carrying the weight of clan security. Imagine now a darker corner of the courtyard, where torches reveal intricate runes carved into a standing stone, a rune stone of cursing, left unfinished in a fit of frantic grief. Here whispers speak of other, a mad desire that burns beyond propriety, a force believed to twist love into wrath when kinship lines are breached. Imagine a small village nestled by a winding riverbank, its thatched cottages huddled like sparrows against the breeze. In the centre lies the thing, an open clearing ringed by stones and marked with slender wooden posts. Here, before suns rise on market day, the villagers gather to settle disputes, hear proclamations and, most critically, uphold the common code of kinship and prohibition that forms the bedrock of their shared life. At the heart of this code stands the incest taboo, an absolute line drawn between close blood relations between parent and child, siblings and even uncle and niece. Such unions are viewed not merely as personal transgressions, but as ruptures in the clan's very fabric. To breach this boundary is to risk other, the mad desire believed to warp minds and bring calamity upon households. On this morning's thing, the case is laid before the villagers. A young farmer, Leifer, is accused of taking his sister in marriage. The elder chieftain, seated on a carved wooden bench, speaks in measured tones. Leifer, you stand accused of union within the second degree of kin. This is forbidden by both custom and law. His voice carries across the cleared earth, steady and impartial. Various witnesses step forward, recounting how Leifer and his sister were seen leaving the barn at dusk, their cloaks entwined. Though no child was born of their union, the mere act is enough to summon the law. Under the Gragas' influence upon local custom, such incest merits severe penalty, confiscation of property, a fine paid to the wronged kin, and often outlawry if the offender cannot or will not pay. Leifer bows his head, sorrow in his eyes. In a quiet voice he admits the union, claiming ignorance of the law's reach. The chieftain regards him for a long moment, then announces the sentence. Leifer, you must surrender your herd 20 sheep, and pay your father 300 silver pennies. Should you fail to do so by the next full moon, you will be declared an outlaw and expelled from our lands. A hush follows. The villagers murmur among themselves. Some express sympathy for life's shame. Others nod in approval of the chieftain's firmness. All agree that the law must hold. Kinship bonds are the warp and weft of their community, and any tear risks unravelling the whole tapestry. Once the judgment is pronounced, a few men step forward to appraise the sheep by the river's shallows, while women begin weaving pigment stripes on Leifer's forearm, a simple but visible mark that signals both his penance and his continuing place among kin. The stripes will fade in time, but the lesson will linger in every heart. The clan's code is stronger than even the deepest personal longing. Later, as the thing disperses, older women gather by a linden tree to share stories of past transgressions and their consequences. One matron recalls the tale of long-ago cousins who disregarded the taboo, only to see their children stricken by fevers and their fields yield nothing but stones. Another murmurs that the mad desire of others is spirit not to be trifled with. Once it takes hold, it can drive man or woman to deeds beyond reason. These stories become part of the village's shared memory, reinforcing the taboo through warning rather than explicit law alone. Mothers hush young children with veiled references. Mind your heart and not steal what is forbidden, or other will claim you. Fathers carve simple bind runes on doorposts at midsummer to guard against illicit yearnings. By dusk, the riverbank is quiet again. Leifer's returned to his cottage, his sheep reduced but his spirit intact. Neighbours nod as they pass, acknowledging both his shame and his survival. The clan's code has run its course, the boundary has been defended, the offender's restitution made, and the community's cohesion preserved. In the flicker of hearth fires that night, families huddle together, comforted by the certainty that their shared laws, though sometimes harsh, stand between order and chaos. Let their steadfast resolve settle within you, a reminder that human bonds, once broken, demand both justice and care to be mended. Imagine yourself standing before a monolithic slab, weathered grey granite rising from the moss like a silent sentinel. Its surface is pitted by time, but recent grooves gleam pale in the torchlight, fresh marks where a hand has carved words of vengeance rather than blessing. This is a runestone curse, etched in the charged language of the elder Futhark, intended not to honour the gods or celebrate lineage, but to invoke misfortune upon a specific soul. On a still midsummer night, under a waning moon, a spurned lover might approach such a stone, in one hand a small iron chisel, perhaps pilfered from a blacksmith's tools, and in the other, a handful of charcoal to darken the grooves once carved. Each scratch of metal on stone rings loud in the hush, a confession of rage and betrayal. The carver whispers runes of binding and ruin, each name, a man, a woman, a rival, hewn alongside the symbols for other and neither. Runes are not mere letters to the Norse mind. They are vessels of power. Each character carries distinct resonance. To carve DOR is to summon other, a force that unmoors reason and fans the flames of obsession. To inscribe NID is to brand the target with Nith, the deepest dishonor, suggesting their very name will carry disgrace. The curse is both graphic and abstract. It need not specify blood or bone, for the rune's presence suffices to unleash unseen forces. One such stone stands at a remote crossroads near a fishing hamlet. Local legend holds that its carver was a jilted wife whose husband took a concubine. Under cover of darkness, she chiseled runes that roughly translate, "Thorn and you who betray hearth's trust, may your seed wither like autumn leaves, and may your dreams twist in madness until you beg for mercy in a stranger's voice." By dawn, the runes gleam with fresh cuts, charcoal still dark in their depths. Villagers, uneasy, dare not approach until the next morning, when they find the husband's prize stallion dead, and the wife's cottage door marked with fresh hoofprints, an omen of both mortal loss and otherworldly justice. Whether coincidence or rune-wrought curse, the tale cements the stone's dark reputation. Runic curses come in many forms. Some are butter rune, remedial runes, carved to heal or protect. These are careful, symmetrical, and placed at thresholds. Cursing runes, by contrast, are jagged, haphazard, their lines deep and harsh. The very act of carving such runes demands intent. The carver must call upon the gods of disfavor, often Loki or Hel, offering personal sacrifice, whether a drop of blood, a shard of broken pottery, or a lock of hair. In the hush of night at the Jarl's hall, rumours whisper of a wound stone half-carved beneath the eaves, a secret vessel for household venom. No oath binds the Jarl's concubines from carving such maledictions when jealousies flare, and though the Jarl's power might protect him, the lesser folk believe that other needs no invitation beyond the carved runes themselves. Once invoked, it moves like wind through tall grass, unstoppable and unseen. Communities developed rituals to counteract curses. Hulíningar, protective rites performed by seeresses who stroke their staffs over the runes, chanting words of unbinding. Not by blood, nor by bone, nor by rune shall malice hold its throne. Winds reverse, tides unbind, leave no curse upon this mind. Or villagers might gather at the stone's foot, leaving tokens of appeasement, bread, ale and fern fronds to placate the spirit of the wronged. In some cases, the stone itself would be overturned or shattered, its fragments cast into flowing water, believed to carry the curse downstream and away. Yet many rune stones remain, their curses half forgotten but still potent. At night, travellers tell of a faint hum as they pass, as though the carved runes murmur in protest. And though you may never see its maledictions, the very presence of runes carved in anger serves as a stark reminder. In Viking society, words wield weight equal to steel. To carve a curse is to shape destiny itself, an act of intimate malice that lingers in stone long after the carver's shadow has faded. Let this thought settle in your mind as you step back from the flickering torch and leave the rune stone silent once more. In its quiet power, carved malice endures, a testament to the human heart's capacity for both creation and ruin. Imagine the grand hall of a powerful Jarl, banners of raven and dragon draped across its beams, benches laid with dyed furs, and a hearth so vast its embers seem to glow like a captive sunset. Here, in this bastion of privilege, the rules that bind common kin gently bend, allowing some Jarls to skirt the prohibitions that apply to lesser folk. Yet even for the mighty, taboo carries its own price. One of the most infamous tales involves Jarl Sigurd the Proud, a ruler whose ambition and charisma were matched only by his scandalous choice of bride, his own niece Yorsa. Their union, celebrated in some courts as a display of dynastic consolidation, was denounced elsewhere as a brazen breach of kinship law. In Icelandic sagas, choruses of outraged poets composed harsh verses, their lines veiled insults and veering toward moral outrage. He who weaves nephew into bed breeds madness where oaks once stood. The raven's call drips shame and dread from kin's betrayal stained in blood. These skaldic stanzas, though artful, carried a sting sharper than any blade. Poetry among the elite was public record, memorized and recited at gatherings. A pointed quatrain could tarnish a Jarl's reputation more swiftly than rumour. Yet Sigurd paid little heed to censure. For him, marriage to Ursa solidified claims to contested lands, tying her maternal inheritance directly to his own line. At grand banquets in his hall, guests marvelled at her beauty, silver threads in her braid, a cloak of wolf fur, and whispered that no other Jarl could boast such a prize. But beneath the surface glitter lay uneasy currents. Some attendants would avert their eyes when Sigurður and Yrsa passed, their silence a muted condemnation. Others swapped furtive glances, recalling the clan-based prohibitions that applied more rigorously beyond elite circles. In one telling episode, an envoy from a neighbouring Jarl presented Sigurður with a richly carved drinking horn, yet he affixed runes of caution rather than praise, spelling out others' essence. May the fire in your veins consume all reason born of law and law, may kinship's bond be severed soon, and madness reign upon your shore. Whether intended as friendly counsel or veiled threat, the runes marked a turning point. Sigurður's halls bristled with tension, and late-night revels grew restless. Servants whispered of doors slammed, of torches snuffed in corridors, and of Sigurður's hollow laughter echoing through empty chambers. When political winds shifted, and rival Jarls sensed weakness, they seized upon this scandal. At a high court known as the Thingvellir, emissaries demanded that Sigurður's union be annulled or invalidated by communal decree, a move that would strip him of honour and potentially provoke feud. Sigurður's pride bristled, but Jotjar's whispered counsel prevailed. They offered restitution instead of divorce. Sigurður granted land to the offended clan, endowed an orphanage in Jotjar's name, and commissioned a great tapestry depicting their family tree, carefully omitting the controversial branches. Still, the stain remained. In years that followed, sagas record how Sigurð's line faltered. Successive heirs died young, crops failed in odd patterns, and a sense of brooding unease settled over the longhouse. Many attributed these misfortunes to other unleashed by the initial transgression, a force that no amount of restitution could fully dispel. Even in death, Sigurður and Yrsa's legacy divided opinion. Some praised their union as bold statecraft, others cited it as memento mori, a warning that power does not exempt one from the ancient currents of taboo. Their story found its place in saga manuscripts, inked in margins alongside legal excerpts from the Gragas, as if to remind future rulers that license and law must walk in tandem. As you stand in the hush of the hall, torches guttering low, consider the delicate balance at play. Elite privilege may shift the rules, but it cannot erase the deep-seated bonds of kinship, nor quell the whispers of other that echo through carved stone and skaldic verse. In their tension lies the essence of Norse society, where power and passion collide under the ever-watchful gaze of both law and legend. Imagine a small council gathered beneath the open sky at dawn's pale light, kinsfolk assembled for kinship justice, the ancient process by which wrongs within the bloodline are addressed. Here, beneath sentinel pines that whisper with the wind, three paths lie before any family shattered by transgression: negotiation, exile, or vengeance. Each carries its own weight, its own measure of resolution and risk. Picture two chieftains, one wronged, one accused, seated at a low table carved from river-worn oak. Between them lies a sheepskin scroll listing customary compensation rates, the soft parchment bearing the faded stains of past agreements. The accused, head bowed, offers silver rings laid carefully in an even row. The wronged party's steward unfurls the scroll, measuring the rings against runic markers denoting triple the standard wergild for kin-sibling offences. A hush falls as they count. 60 rings become 90. Each silver circle glints like pale moonlight on still water. When the final count balances, the chieftains exchange a solemn nod, an unspoken pact that wounds need not spill more blood. Negotiation restores harmony. Women reweave the tapestries torn in anger, children return home without scar, and the household hearth glows once more with measured warmth. But some wrongs cut too deep for silver to soothe. In those cases, the path of exile is chosen. Imagine Leifr, the young farmer who took his sister's hand beyond law's pale, standing at his cottage door as neighbours pass word, "By decree of the clan, you shall dwell beyond our borders until the next spring tide." His modest tools, ploughshare, spinning distaff, are collected by the steward, carried away as tokens of forfeiture. His mother wraps him in a threadbare cloak, its wool still soft against his skin, and presses a small loaf of rye bread into his hand. "May it journey with you," she whispers, voice as gentle as moss underfoot. He steps beyond the last cottage, into the hush of woodland moss, each footstep stirring dew-laden ferns. Beyond the clan's lands, he becomes a guest of other communities, his exile both punishment and chance for renewal, if he can survive the loneliness and the howl of wind through unfamiliar trees. When compassion fails and shame is too bitter, some clans demand vengeance. Picture a moonlit raid, Torches flicker against stout palisades as kinsmen gather weapons, axes smoothed by careful use, spears tipped with hardened steel. Their faces, half hidden by leather masks, are set not with rage for spectacle, but with solemn determination to restore balance. They move like shadows across the land, silent as otters slipping into cold streams. At dawn's first grey, they stand at the offender's door and call out the name wronged, invoking the clan's honour. The raid is swift. Shields sound a muted echo, doors yield to iron, and the offender is seized. The act is never gleeful. Rather, it is the grim fulfillment of duty, a debt paid in kind to satisfy the stain upon the bloodline. Yet Norse tradition allows for blending these paths. An exiled offender may negotiate safe passage home by offering scale adjustments, fewer sheep for a lesser kin wrong, or a promise to lead a trading expedition. A vengeance raid, once vowed, can be stayed if the wronged kin accept additional compensation, lands, labour, or the formal blessing of a healing runic charm. In these delicate negotiations, the clan's other, its passionate fervour for justice, must be appeased but not overfed. Too much vengeance begets feuds that spiral like wildfire. Too much mercy risks dishonour. The ideal lies in measured balance. The hush after rings are counted, the soft cloak draped on an exile's shoulders, the single horn blown to signal a raid's end and a truce's beginning. Back in the Jarl's hall, tales of kinship justice are recited beside hearth flames, stories of negotiation that saved villages, of exiles who returned wiser, of vengeance that burned clean the stain of betrayal. These narratives ripple through generations, shaping both lore and law. As you stand by the embers, let their lessons drift through your thoughts. That justice in a clan is not a single blade but a craftsman's toolkit, ranging from silver and words to cloak and steel, designed to mend the fabric of kinship and guide each heart back toward the steady warmth of home. In the Jarl's hall, the lives of lawful wives and concubines, of inheritance and intrigue, spin out like threads on a loom, each relationship coloured by power, affection and ritual. Beyond these walls, common kinship laws hold sway, sealing taboo with iron clarity and invoking others, both warning and curse. Imagine yourself now stepping back into the courtyard's moonlit hush. The hearth's embers glow low, and the runestone's half-finished curse seems to watch you with silent runes. In the hush, you feel the tension between license and law, between desire's flame and the bedrock of prohibition. Let these contrasts settle in your mind as the final flicker of torchlight fades. May the rhythm of wives and concubines, of lawful vows and forbidding curses, weave into your dreams a tapestry both complex and calm, reminding you that even in the loftiest halls, the human heart moves to ancient, unhurried rhythms.